Hello! I'm looking for an adventure. It's about time I got started. It's winter. That means it's too cold for adventures, especially where I live.
Oh, 23. That's not too bad. Oh, wait a second. Oh, no.
While I'm stuck inside, safe from the cold, I'll be spending this time preparing for spring. Over the next few videos, I'll be building a full set of garb that I can use for adventures in the spring, and hopefully joining some Larp and reenactment events in the coming months. Huge thanks to Skill Tree and Burgschneider for putting together Level Up Larp, which is a competition I'm taking part in. Before we get into my crafting journey, let's go over where I'm starting from. A local play company or something, I'm not quite sure, was going out of business and selling everything. I found a few nice pieces. The highlights were a hood with a lyre pipe, 2 felt wizard-style robes, and a large purple poncho. Obviously, I'm not quite sure of the makeup of the materials that these are made from, but they seem nice enough. I've tried to get some camp gear that fits into the fantasy aesthetic. Mainly these 2 pots and a very small frying pan. I believe this is actually an antique. I haven't had the chance to test the pots, and the Boda leaves the water tasting a little strange, so I'm not sure if I'll be using it. I've also tried to push the limits of my local thrift stores. I've found many things that fall into level 1, level 2, as defined by Living Anachronism in this video about putting together your first costume or garb. Most are simple shirts, a pair of sweatpants, and most recently 3 pairs of nice boots. I have no idea how I got so lucky. I've been looking for something like these for years. Then suddenly there were 3 all that fit me. Unreal luck. Aside from thrift store finds, I have been dabbling in the STA community in recent years, and at this most recent Harvest Festival, I purchased this very long ring belt, a small pouch, and this knife. I love these items. The knife is designed almost exactly for what I was looking for, and they are really well crafted, at least to my eyes. The knife itself is made out of a reclaimed sawmill blade, which is cool, and hopefully sturdy. Now we get into some of the items that I've crafted myself. This started a few years back when my parents offered me a very old sewing machine. I accepted and thought I was ready for a sewing project. I immediately went to my local fabric store and started looking for something to make a cloak out of. I didn't have any mind for historical materials or the utility of the fabric. I was just looking for something that was heavy and would flow correctly and wasn't too stretchy. I found this wonderful blue fabric that was way more expensive than I had budgeted for. I also picked up a basic black fabric that was soft to the touch, just for lining. I did some very basic tests of making a hood and a pocket and then thought I was ready. So basically no experience and a large project underway. It went about as well as you might expect. I learned a very important lesson from this, and I think it's important for everyone to learn this at some point. I'm amazing. I love this thing. It's held up for years. I take it out at any opportunity, and it always comes in handy whenever there's a snowstorm. I never did put in the pockets though. This year I made a few more cloaks. I made a wax canvas cloak and hood out of the same material. I followed these videos from Skill Tree and Living Anachronism with a few of my own changes. These are actually my second attempt I made. I wasn't happy with the stitching on my first cloak, and the hood was just too small and had a hole in the back of the mantle. I ended up giving these to a friend. I'm not sure if he even kept them. The second version ended up a bit better. The cloak is larger than Skill Tree's, and the hood is double thickness, except for the front and back panels. The hood might be a little too big. It does sort of eat my world, but I can roll the hood back, and I like it. If it bothers me in the long run, I might make some changes, but for now, I really like how they turned out. This year, I also decided that it was time that I had a bow of my own. With future adventures in mind, I wanted a bow that was small enough to carry on a backpack without too much trouble, but I didn't go quite as small as Aragorn's bow, mainly because my limiting factor was draw length. I wanted a bow that I could travel with and still shoot with a normal and natural style. I looked for weeks for the perfect board to make my bow out of, and eventually found a nice oak board that I just worked down. I backed my bow with the same canvas from the waxed cloak and hood, and I used the same measurements from this Skill Tree video, and honestly, this was a mistake. This design really did not translate very well to my short bow, and this left my bow with some pretty noticeable set that will just not go away no matter what I do. I also don't think I used enough glue on my backing. I might add more in the future, but I'm not sure yet. Even with all of the mistakes I made in the process, it hasn't exploded yet. Somehow this all worked. I've taken it out shooting multiple times and it's held up fantastically. I ended up with a little under 30 pounds at 23 inches draw, and the bow itself is 54 inches long. I wanted a bow that I could hopefully use at Larps, which is why the weight is a bit low, but also I'm a weak noodle. So it's pretty perfect for me. And once again, I am amazing. I have no idea how my first bow worked out so well. Unfortunately, now that I've done a bit more research into LARP events and the rules, sadly, I don't think I'll be able to use this at any events, mainly because I made it and the safety is just not a known element. Regardless, I love it, and I plan on taking it on my own adventures at the very least. I also made this arm guard for shooting my bow. The brace height on my bow is a bit small, so it hits my arm a bit more than other bows I've used, and this was my first leather project. And it really took me longer than it should have to figure out these straps. I didn't want to cut the leather ties if I didn't have to, but nothing else I could think of was working, so I ended up cutting it, just having these two ties. Lastly, my most recent project is this canvas tent. I started this about a month ago. I used canvas and a homemade silicone solution to waterproof it. I ended up making this design. I was trying to keep it small and lightweight, but it ended up being a little under 10 pounds. So certainly it's not ultra light. I also used the extra waterproof material from over here to make this satchel. I made some foolish decisions when making the strap, and I kind of hate it. I'll probably redo it soon, but the satchel and the bag itself does function well enough. It's waterproofed, and I plan on holding wallet, phone, that sort of thing, and keep it out of sight and keep the aesthetic alive. Now, to help put the tent up, I made this staff. It's as tall as I would want a walking staff to be. I wouldn't want much bigger than this, and it can split apart in the center and create the vertical supports for the tent.
Also, the rope I used to attach the walking stick can be used as the guide line for the tent.
Now, I'm not done making the tent. I still need to add these leather supports to the edges, and I haven't tested it at all, actually, because as soon as it was ready to test, the ground was already frozen. So I guess stay tuned for the trial run in spring. So this is where I'm at now. I have a little bit of crafting experience, but I would still say that I'm a beginner and still learning a lot with every project I do. I did pick up some more tools and leather materials during Black Friday to further my crafting potential, but I still lack the raw skill. This brings us back to level up Larp. I need Garb more than anything, and this is a great excuse to start this YouTube channel, and Level Up Larp really came along at the perfect time for me. So, phase 1 of Level Up Larp. I came up with this character design as a starting point. I wanted something that fits the ranger vibes, but had enough layers that I could accessorize into a few character concepts. So let's talk about character concepts. If I'm going to build a character for a LARP, I need to find a LARP so I know what sort of lore I should be pulling from. So let's check online to see what's nearby to Western Montana. Okay, so there's nothing near me. Or to be more specific, there's very few options nearby. So all this means to me is my garb needs to be versatile as possible, and able to be refit into a few different character styles. That way I have the freedom to go to certain events potentially anywhere, because with this sort of distribution, there isn't a single LARP that I can dedicate to. Now, I designed this for the Ranger/Druid vibe. However, I know that not all LARPs have magic, so I want to be able to push the garb into either extreme. If there's absolutely no magic in the LARP that I'm attending, I want to be able to armor up and make a fighter. If there's lots of magic in the LARP I'm going to, or a cool magic mechanic that I want to explore, I could remove the weapons and armor and go full wizard or healer. That's what I'm aiming for, a foundation to build upon. Signing up for Level Up LARP, I then purchased these 4 items. Now, these 4 items are made out of cotton, and I planned a little rant about cotton and how it's not an ideal material for adventures, but here's the thing. When these items arrived, I unpacked them and they really impressed me. Just the raw, unexpected quality of these completely changed my mind. Cotton absolutely has a place in the modern adventurer's closet. It may not be as ideal as linen or wool or modern materials for functionality or moisture wicking, but it does a wonderful job and with less complexity and maintenance, which definitely makes it more appealing for frequent use. If I want just more medieval or fantasy vibes in my life, in my day-to-day, these will be my go-to. Plus, they are far thicker than I was expecting. I wouldn't have a second thought about using these in some colder weather. Which brings us back to my design. 1, layers are wonderful, no matter what material it is. The first thing to do with this is to modify the outer layer. This is the largest mod that I have planned for this. This outer layer arrived and was very nearly too small for me, but it wasn't exactly meant for my build, and the sizing is likely to differ. But luckily, I don't need it to fit perfectly for this. So, for the modifications, I start by identifying how much I need to cut away from the front and back panels. It's not too bad to find the middle of these cutouts.
I made sure that the cutoff triangle had the same edge length as the remaining side. That way, the cutoff triangle would match the bottom edge of the tunic when reattached. Because the front and back panels were different sizes, I had to cut the back a little lower, but the triangles had to be the same size. I had a difficult time fitting all of this material into my sewing machine. I noticed that the entire edge of the garment was lined with a separate piece of material along the edges. I was able to cut this off entirely from the triangle sections. And I was able to use this layout to my advantage on the main tunic by cutting just the edge and just that outermost seam and leaving the innermost seam on the tunic, allowing me to take this triangle and sandwich the fabric around it before sewing, giving me a good seam on both sides of the triangle that gave it a flush, clean look and provided structural support. I then hemmed the bottom edge, cut the front open, and hemmed the new front. Then this outer layer was done.
This is the basics of the silhouette that I have planned. I plan on lining the jacket with something to allow me to attach pockets without the seam showing through to the front. So, this is where my adventure begins. Stay warm out there, and for the first time, thank you for watching. Hi, Leo. He's helping. How am I supposed to work under these conditions? Okay. Yeah, hi. Hello, Leo. Can I talk to the camera now? Guess not.